Today, we get into what is the lingering and possibly stale state of the Bantamweight division. And let's discuss lightweight and how one man who is not ranked whatsoever at any given point in time can be granted a title shot. And what about the middleweight division, where your former champion is getting DUIs, your current champion is willing to take on all comers, and multiple people, including another fighter who is not ranked, may become the champion? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? What's happening? What's going down? We are here. We are about to get into another one of my incoherent rants. Today we're going to be discussing the current temperature, we'll word it that way, of three different divisions: bantamweight, lightweight, and middleweight. Let's start first with the bantamweight division, where your champion is Sugar Sean O'Malley. There's not really a lot to be said about Sugar Sean O'Malley. He, as the champion, is in a pretty good space because he has multiple people he can face. I would say he has multiple people he can face that he could also beat. And he's not really at a loss, so to speak, for guys he could immediately be rushed into the octagon to fight right now, and the fight is going to sell. In my opening, where I said the bantamweight division is stale, it is stale because of two fighters. Two fighters are slowing everything up, are holding up the show. One of them because he's a good friend, and the other one because he's delusional. Those two men would be Aljamain Sterling and Merab. Merab is a good friend. Merab has spoken about that, when he wanted to become an MMA fighter in the UFC, Aljo took him in. Aljo gave him a place to live. Aljo allowed him to come in and train. Aljo kind of got him acclimated, so to speak, to living in America and to being at the Ray Longo gym. And, just really tried to make him comfortable. So shout out to Merab for being a good friend, for, stalling his career while Aljo goes out and has his moment. Now, this is where I say one man is delusional and also kind of a bad friend. All right, let's talk about Aljamain Sterling. This guy right here. I mean, how many times I got to tell everyone here on YouTube? Aljo is such a weirdo. He's a former champion, so it's hard to call him a loser, but he has a loser mentality, so to speak. And I don't agree with Dana White on much, but Dana White was correct about Aljamain Sterling. He always says the wrong thing at the wrong time, does the wrong thing at the wrong time. And he's got everything laid out for him. So you got Aljo, who has clearly been leaning toward moving up to featherweight for the last 2 years. He was talking about this shortly after he won the belt from Piotr Yan. So now's your chance, Aljo. You lost, bro. And I don't care, you're on, the MMA Hour. You're talking about, I tried to push the pace and that one mistake. Bro, you ain't never pushed the pace your entire career. Why you chose to push the pace against one of the best counter strikers in your division after you've given us countless Aljo boring fights? Why you chose, now I need to push the pace. That's what I'm telling everybody on YouTube. The man is slow. He's not a bright man. I don't care if he owns his own tequila or liquor. I don't care all the money he made. He's not bright. When it comes down to, are you bright? Are you intelligent? Hey, Aljo, are you a bright, intelligent man? He needs to answer no, because he's not. He's an outstanding athlete. He's a good fighter. He's winning at life. He's a good family. He's got everything. But he doesn't mean he's bright, and he's not bright. So now instead of just moving up to featherweight, now Aljo's like, well, I might want to stay and get a rematch against Sean O'Malley, well, I might move up, but those guys are bigger. I'm working with them in the gym to see how I'm going to fit in. Bro, either you're going to do it or you're not. Either you got huevos or you don't got them, bro. That's just what it is. You know, you're one of the best wrestlers in your division, if not the best. Pretty sure that's going to translate to a certain extent up to featherweight. Because, I mean, you're shredded at bantamweight. At featherweight, you're not really going to be outsized, at least dimensions and height-wise, especially when the champion is Volkanovski. So, man up, bulk up, you know, quit cutting weight. You're still going to look diesel, you know, because you're shredded at bantamweight. At featherweight, you're not even gonna look pudgy. You're still gonna look shredded. You're just gonna be bulkier. Man up and go up and let your friend, let Merab challenge for the belt. Okay? So that's one side of it. Now, because I truly believe that if Aljo would just dip and go to 145, Merab could then completely be all in and start pushing the pace to try to get the title shot. And, you know, maybe he has to turn to the internet or whatever he has to do, but the UFC would probably give him that shot. Outside of that, we've got Chito Vera. Chito Vera, who is ranked number 6 in the division, has a feud, has a blood feud, so to speak, with Sugar Sean O'Malley. That looks like that is the fight that the UFC is targeting. You know, that would be a huge fight. Chito has a huge fan base. Of course, Sean O'Malley has a huge fan base. They've got plenty of history together, including they've already fought once in which Chito was the winner. You know, I mean, they've got plenty of stuff for the B-roll for the UFC to make the packages to sell the fight. So that's already set. You got Corey Sandhagen, who is currently ranked number 4. He is out on injury, but Corey Sandhagen is an animal, a savage, a beast, you know, and anybody that he's going to fight for the title is going to be big business. You also have Henry Cejudo, who is ranked number 3. Henry Cejudo is part of why I say bantamweight can kind of be stale somewhat, even though you have all these tremendous fighters. Because Henry is kind of 1 foot out, 1 foot in. 1 foot is already out the game. 1 foot is already retired. The other foot is like, can I still make money fighting? You know, are they going to give me another title shot? Like 1 foot is already out and 1 foot is in. Therefore, that clogs up the division because you have a guy who only wants to fight if certain criteria is met. Like, is it a fight that if I win, I'm going to get a championship title shot, or am I fighting for the title? That's like his criteria. That slows up the division while the UFC is trying to figure out how we're going to move these pieces around the number 3 guy in the division. So, you know, I mean, what are you going to do there? So, to me, I feel like Merab, by him being a good friend, he's somewhat clogging up the division because he can't move on because Aljo won't see himself out the door. Like, bro, the door is there. Aljo walk out the door and open up the door into the featherweight division. But, you know, Aljo is just holding up everything because he can't make up his mind because, as I've already said, he's a very feeble-minded man. As well as you've got Henry, who's 1 foot in and 1 foot out. So he's only going to fight if he's going to make a ton of money and fight for a championship or get that guaranteed fight that if he wins, he fights for the championship. Nevertheless, bantamweight division is still in a good space because their champion is Sean O'Malley. You know, I don't know how active Sean is going to be, but he's willing and ready to fight Chito right now. So I would assume the UFC is going to make that happen. Let's move on. Let's move over to the lightweight division. Arguably the deepest, greatest division in the UFC. Currently, right now, you have Islam Makhachev sitting there as the champion. He will be defending his title against Charles Oliveira, coming up in October. So, you know, that's going to kind of sort itself out. Charles Oliveira is a star. He's got like something crazy, like 7 million followers. I mean, Charles Oliveira is a star, you know. Islam Makhachev, He's not hurting for anything. He hasn't recently lost. I know people believe that Volkanovski beat him, but it is what it is. So, he's in a good space. As far as contenders, when you look at the list, you got ranked number 2, Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje more than likely will probably face the winner of Islam and Charles Oliveira, which both would be good storylines. Justin can try to get redemption against his loss against Khabib, against Islam, as well as he can try to get redemption against his loss against, Charles Oliveira. So that's good standing. Then we also have Gamrot. How about Gamrot last Saturday after he goes out there and defeats Fiziev? Gamrot is ranked number 6, and I wouldn't sleep on him to be slotted in to a championship fight when needed. Now, I know he's only number 6, and there's a lot of guys in front of him, but when you look at these guys in front of him, Justin is number 2. He's waiting. Dustin Poirier is number 3. Dustin, I don't see getting a title shot anytime soon. So if somebody falls out, if something happens, I could see them throwing Gamrot in there before Dustin, simply because, even though he doesn't have the popularity, Gamrot's not going to ask for a ton of money to fight for the belt. Dustin is going to want a huge payday to fight for the championship. Gamrot's on a low salary type contract. So the UFC saves money by giving him a title shot. You know what I'm saying? So, and they're always into saving money. So Gamrot, I think, could be slotted in. No time soon. I mean, he's not getting slotted in over Justin Gaethje or anything like that. But I would just keep him in mind. And as I spoke about in my intro, then there's that pale horse. Or maybe you call him the dark horse. Or maybe, you call him some sort of a horse because he has horse-sized nostrils because of what he puts in his nose. Let's talk about the man in the distance, the man with the white cloud around him, and that's not smoke. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, the biggest star in mixed martial arts. He just commands that, not respect, but he commands that there's a pecking order in the UFC, and Conor's always going to be at the top. That's just how it is. Until another star eclipses that. For all you Izzy fans, if he wasn't hitting the bottle, and if he stayed focused, he probably could have been that guy, but he's not. So anyway, back to Conor. Conor at any given point, and also I'm not a fan of Conor. Conor at any given point can pull the Conor card, and Conor can be slotted in for a title shot. Don't listen to Dana White where he's like, well, Conor's got to win a fight. I mean, we can't just give this guy a title shot. We're not in that business. Dana White, the UFC is in whatever business it chooses to be in that's going to make it money. So, with that being said, at any given time, Conor can be slotted in for a lightweight title fight. He doesn't really have to win a fight to do that. If he chooses to, if the UFC chooses to have him fight somebody before he fights for the title, that's just because they just did it. They don't have to do that. So, at any given time, Conor, who is not ranked, can be slotted in for a title shot. So keep that in mind in the upcoming months. Let's move on. We're going to move on and end it with the middleweight division for this episode. So middleweight has had an interesting shakeup. This has been a division that is not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's been stale, but it has been somewhat boring for a long time with Izzy at the top of it because of the fact he was just beating everybody and there wasn't really anybody left. But now when you look at it, the champion, Sean Strickland is a guy that's not going to turn down a fight based out of other fighters. He's just not. He's just not wired in a way where he's like, oh, I don't like that guy, so I'm not going to give him a title shot. Oh, I don't want to face this guy. I feel like I should face this guy. He's not a diva like Israel Adesanya. He's not really worried about choosing his contender. Now, you might see him give interviews and things, and he might shade different guys and act like he doesn't want to fight them. But behind closed doors, the reason why Sean Strickland keeps getting treated well by the UFC is Sean Strickland will step in there and fight somebody on 2 days, 1 day, an hour's notice. He don't even care. Like, hey, the champion just the contender just stubbed his toe in the back. We need somebody to replace him in this fight. Well, Sean Strickland's down the street at the pizza joint, just having him as pie. I mean, we might be able to slide him in there. You think he'll take it? Yeah, he'll take it. All right. I mean, that's just what it is. So Sean Strickland is willing to fight whoever, and that's kind of what the UFC needs at a champion at this moment in time, right? Let's move over to Israel Adesanya, who is now ranked number 1 in the division. Izzy, I mean, I foresee Izzy making his return sometime in 2024. I would probably say the summer of 2024, maybe around International Fight Week. I don't know what's going on with him. I mean, I know his DUI happened before he lost his middleweight championship, but I don't even know what's going on with that guy. He just doesn't seem to me to be the same Izzy mentally. Like when you look at that interview that, he did on his podcast where his brother was interviewing him, that guy is weird. And his little nervous laughter that he kept trying to have with his brother over the jokes his brother was throwing, I don't buy any of that for a minute. Izzy got embarrassed by Sean Strickland. And a fighter of his caliber, more so than anything, more than losing the belt, he's probably more hurt that he was embarrassed by a fighter like Sean Strickland. So I don't know where Izzy's going to go. He obviously already has 2 fights waiting in the wings. He has the rematch with Sean Strickland, as well as he has the first time match with Dricus Du Plessis. And let's move over to Dricus Du Plessis, who is ranked number 2 at middleweight. Dricus is in a good position. We don't care about Izzy. Let's move over to Dricus. Dricus is in an outstanding position because there's a lot of chitter-chatter between him, and I did use the word chitter-chatter, between him and Sean Strickland. Dricus could be slated in there at any time to fight for the middleweight championship. He still has a few with Izzy, so if Izzy gets a rematch and gets the belt back, he can always fight, as well as Dricus could go in there and fight against any of the top middleweights, and it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a major fight. So Dricus is definitely in a good position and possibly could be the next man to step in the octagon with Sean Strickland for the middleweight championship. Let's move on. What about Robert Whittaker, who is ranked number 3? Robert Whittaker got a new lease on life when Izzy lost the belt. And now the champion is someone that Robert hasn't faced yet. And the guy that might get the next title shot being Dricus Du Plessis, Robert just lost to him, but you can always see them do a rematch between the two. So either way, Robert probably has to go out there and win one more fight, but after he wins that next fight, he's in there. He could fight Sean Strickland for the belt. He could fight Du Plessis if Du Plessis gets the belt. Any of that. So Izzy being gone and taking a little swig off the bottle, it works well for Robert Whittaker. You know what I'm saying? So good for him. But let's talk about when I talked about earlier in about the lightweight division, about someone who is unranked that could slide in and get a title shot. There is also someone who is unranked and could slide in at any moment after his current fight that he's in and get a title shot. And that is, if I could do a howl, I would do a howl right now. The next fighter is kind of like, it's late at night. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you went camping with your friends. I'm not a camping guy. I'll admit that, but I'm just going to set this story. Maybe you went camping with your friends. You all might have enjoyed a little herbal essence that night. You know what I'm saying? You got the beers flowing. You might have pulled out the bottle of whiskey. You might start taking some swigs. You're sitting around the campfire, and then off in the distance, you hear little sticks and twigs snapping. You hear them. What's that noise? I don't... Did y'all hear that? Then off in the distance, you hear a wolf's howl. A wolf's howl. There it is. What is that? What's that noise? Who's in the background? It's the lone wolf. It's the wolf. Khamzat Chimaev. Now what you gonna do? So, as long as Chimaev goes in there in October and defeats Paulo Costa At any given time, the UFC could slate Chimaev in there to fight Sean Strickland for the belt, to fight the winner of Sean Strickland and Duplessis at any given time, because it's no secret the UFC has been wanting to give Chimaev a title shot and get him in that spot for a long time. Now he doesn't have to deplete himself with the weight cut to 170. He's ready. He's good to go. You know, I know he hasn't been active. My personal opinion, he hasn't been active because of some of his political ties in Russia. But nevertheless, bro, Chimaev is waiting in the wings. So that changes everything because, quite honestly, Chimaev versus Strickland, I'd have to favor Chimaev. And I don't care what he tells you. I don't care about Eugene Behrman. We believe. I don't care what they say. Chimaev versus Izzy. I'm telling you, if you don't, you need to. You need to go along with Chimaev. Don't worry about the stand-up war with Gilbert Burns. Don't worry about any of that, okay? I'm telling you, y'all gonna keep sleeping on Chimaev. I'm telling you, he's gonna slide in one day. You're gonna wake up one Sunday morning and be like, oh, honey, who's the middleweight champion? I fell asleep during the pay-per-view last night. It's the lone wolf. Khamzat Chimaev is the champion. So, we're gonna see how it's all gonna play out. I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode. This is going to be an interesting week because we don't have a UFC show later this week. So I'm going to do a couple more videos, but I just wanted to stop in and start with what I think are 3 divisions that are really in the spotlight right now. When I come back, we're going to probably tackle the welterweight division as well as maybe heavyweight, at least because John and Stipe are about to fight. And we're going to tackle some other divisions. But nevertheless, please, guys, like, subscribe, comment. I love hearing from you guys, whether you agree or disagree. I'm a guy with thick skin, so if you disagree, feel free to throw it up in the comments. I'm not worried about it. But, bro, thank you all for checking out another video. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.